Figuring out what to feed your dog or cat can be really overwhelming sometimes because we have just so many choices. How can you actually figure out what is right for your specific animal? So the first thing I want you to think about is, what does your dog or cat look like? So are they a specific breed? Or can you tell that they have a specific breed in them? Because that might determine some sensitivities that they have to some foods. That's because animals that were obviously bred more so that they could look a certain way develop more sensitivities because the animals they were bred from were from a smaller pool, right? So if they have an issue, you would be able to see that issue more often because that animal was used to make sure that all of the ones from a certain line would look the same way. The next thing you want to think about is the life stage that your animal is in. Obviously, young puppies and kittens need a little bit more energy than older animals do. If you have an older dog, like I do, Iberia is 14 years old now, so I have to be a little bit more careful that she doesn't gain weight or that she doesn't eat foods that are a little bit too heavy for her because her body has been really metabolizing for a long time, and so now needs a little bit more care. The other thing you want to think about is the activity level, and that has to do both of what you can offer them, but also basically who they are. Some lie all day and sleep, it doesn't matter how old they are, and others actually will just jump up and down, and they always need interaction, they need to play with you, they will get into trouble if they don't have something to play with, right? That's just their nature. So obviously, depending on which one you will have to adapt what you give and how much you give. And obviously, if you are hiking or training your dog, then the nutrition levels will change. And usually that means making sure that they're taking in adequate fat. Now, the other thing you want to think about is their actual health conditions. So are they healthy, or do they have conditions that you need to worry about, like arthritis, like diabetes, like maybe cancer? There are different things that you need to consider based on their health issues. So for example, for arthritis, I just want to make sure, because Iberia is 14, she's starting to have some, so I want to make sure that I keep her inflammation level low. She is older and a terrier, so I am concerned that she might develop cancer. Then I make sure that I keep her diet a low level keto diet so that her body basically gets all of the nutrients that they need while keeping insulin low and while keeping inflammation low. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. If you're new here, I'm Micol. I am a pet nutrition specialist, animal osteopath, and homeopath, and I'm the pet mom of Iberia here and my two cats, Britannia and Caledonia. I learned a lot when I was in vet school and doing my nutrition internship, but I also learned a lot by having to feed so many different animals and having to help so many different people actually find what's right for their animal. Now, there's a couple of other things that you can check and that can help you really refine your diet. So far, we've looked at one of the major things, but we haven't gone into a lot of detail, and that's one of the things that I wanted to do now. So one of the things you can look at is your animal's coat. Now, when you touch your animal's coat, it should feel soft and it should feel kind of moist under your hand. And if it doesn't, if it feels dry, if your animal has a little bit of dandruff, you can see this particularly in cats, dark cats, of course. That means that they are not eating enough fat. There's not enough fat in the diet. And if you have a cat and they have a lot of hairballs, yes, it means that you need to brush them a little bit more. That's definitely true. But having a diet that has a little bit more fat, not too much, but a little bit more fat, actually helps them pass those hairballs, and it kind of helps their digestive system. So that's something that you can keep in mind. Now, when I talk about fat, it can both mean adding a little bit of animal fat to their diet, and it can also mean adding a little bit of fish oil. But it might mean that in that period of your pet's life that they need that little bit more. Now, I did say that period because I also want you to keep in mind that it just doesn't mean that they're going to need it for their whole life. Sometimes they just need something for a little bit. They just need support for a while. And to give you an idea, it took me a while to figure this out, but Iberia actually has different needs in different times of the year. So in the winter, she tends to keep weight on easily. In the summer, the problem is that she gets so excited about all the smells and everything that she can do that she will lose weight very, very quickly. So I have learned to also adapt to, the needs of that period. Okay, so this next one is really interesting because people seem to have very different ideas on it, and it always surprises me. So if your dog or cat is eating a lot of grass or is eating plants, then that's something that you need to keep in mind. Sometimes they just need a little bit more nutrients, a little bit more minerals. Eating dirt is actually quite healthy in very small amounts. We know this. We're seeing it even in humans, the connection between the gut and the mind and the bacteria that live in the gut, and eating actually soil, so something that's a little bit dirty with soil, can actually be very beneficial. And obviously animals are developed by eating on the ground, right? Hunting and then eating whatever was coming in. So they eat a little bit of soil. So that is normal. But eating a little bit more of that, it means that they're missing something. They're missing some minerals and some nutrients. So really pay attention to the variety that you're offering and try to offer a little bit more, because it might be that for that period, they do need a little bit more. And in particular, you will see this at the change of the big season. So I'm going to say between winter and spring, basically, and then between summer and autumn. Also, though, keep in mind that it might be that your dog or cat has always done it and they're just used to doing it. But adding variety is always helpful, even if that's just a habit that your animal has. Now, the other thing is, nobody wants to do this, but everybody needs to do this. And that's really paying attention to the litter box and picking up your dog poop. Why? Because those are really, really powerful messages and really powerful signs that we can use to tell if our animal's nutrition is on par or not. Now, obviously, their poop needs to be firm and darker, and it should hardly smell. If you pick it up and it feels like, kind of like a soft Play-Doh, then something is off. If you're feeding a natural diet, that means that you are not feeding enough bone. If you are feeding a commercial diet, it might be that some of the ingredients are something that your animal doesn't agree with. And you should consider going to, possibly an elimination diet if you are raw. And if you're not raw, you should consider maybe going to definitely a wet food and possibly switching to raw. The other thing you want to look at, obviously, is if they pee and how often they pee. So with your cats, that's why a clumping litter I find is really top notch, because every time I clean it every day, and every time I look and I can make sure that I have the same number more or less of pee spots. Because it's clumping, I can actually pick up the clumps and I can see with the scoop, I can see actually how big they are, and that gives me an idea of their health. Last spring, I actually had a case where I went to clean the litter box and I saw that I had a lot of little pee spots, and they're very, very small, and that's a sign of urinary tract infection. So I actually paid attention and I noticed that Britannia was going to the litter box more often, and I took her into the vet and she did have infection, and we took care of it very quickly. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't paid such close attention to the litter box. And that's true for dogs as well. So make sure that your dog is always peeing the same amount, but also how often they're peeing. So looking at the unlookable, the socially unacceptable, it's actually very helpful. And while we're talking about socially inappropriate things, I'm going to ask you, if you learned something and this video was helpful to you, it would really mean a lot if you hit the like button. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps the message being spread, and it also helps me know that this is the kind of video that you like to see, so that I can kind of aim my videos better. I really want to share all of my knowledge with you, and I want to make it accessible for people. It shouldn't be, knowledge shouldn't be kept for a few elect people. It should be available, and you should be able to learn how to think and how to better judge things for your animals, because that means your animals get the best care that they can. Hope that these tips were helpful. I will link the video that I mentioned if you want to check it out, the keto diet for dogs. Cats can also benefit from having a little bit more fat, but there seems to be unclear messages as to how much fat they need to add. So I actually kind of sometimes add it and sometimes I don't. And when I do, I follow the same rules as the ones in the video that I'm going to link for you. So go ahead and check it out. So thank you for joining me for this one. Give your animals a kiss from us, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.